Hey guys, it's Kelsey. I'm back with another scrapbook and process video, and today is Stretch the Sketch. So we have this 12 by 12 here. I really liked this sketch, and when I first saw it, I really thought I was going to squish it down into an 8.5 by 11. But I was looking at the next page I had to Scrapbook, which was the Richmond, Virginia ghost tour, walking tour, and I had a lot of photos for it. So I was like, you know what, this would actually be a really cool sketch to split into a double page. So I'm going to stretch this sketch into a double page layout. I think you can really see where all of my layers and ideas come from, but this page kind of ends up a different beast than I started with this sketch. You can see there I did bring in my paper pad for My Mind's Eye Meow because I am officially out of my 12 by 12 paper for this collection. So I realized a couple pages ago that the My Mind's Eye Meow collection coordinates really, really well with this autumn Felicity Jane collection, with the neon green, the black and white, and the pinks. So you just saw there, I did go through and pull out a couple of black and white stripes as my background. At first, I kind of feel like this is a little too much with the black and white. It looks very like prison, but I really kind of wanted to go for a black and white paper. One, just it's Felicity Jane. I really feel like if I'm going to pull in from another collection, it's going to automatically go with Felicity Jane if it's black and white. But also, this is a ghost tour. Like, I just feel like black and white stripes, like, it'll just go. I don't know if that's the Beetlejuice kind of, vibe that I was inspired to do, but I think the black and white will go with the theme, and I'm hoping as I kind of build out more layers there won't be so much of this stripe showing, but that was a concern when I started working with it, so I did just want to voice that was going through my head. I had a scrap of this really cute neon green and white scalloped from the Meow collection, and I am going to try and use up the rest of the neon green from my scraps, so I did decide to just fussy cut this scallop and have that being a long horizontal layer that runs behind both pages here. So I'm hoping there's enough of that to stretch. You saw my two scraps I had left was the middle part of that multicolor stripe that I gutted from the last layout. I'm going to use the B side, which is this black and white herringbone or chevron. I don't know if you want to call that chevron. And then the lighter pink of the solid. I thought that would be a nice base to kind of work from. I'm going to go ahead and glue all of my photos to a black piece of scrap paper and just mat everything in black, just so the black can kind of stand up from all these layers I'm doing, but also pulls in kind of the black from the background. I really want there to be some pops of black within these layers to kind of go with this bold background I'm doing. And I am getting, let's see, 3 4x6s, a 4x2, and 2 2x2 photos on here. So I get 6 photos on here, which I thought was pretty cool. I had all the locations I had 4x4 photos of, but I just thought it'd be too much to have and too blocky to have all the photos as bigger photos. And with this sketch, there was kind of one bigger photo and 2 smaller ones. So I kind of wanted to keep with that theme and kind of do the sketch justice in that way. So I took the first 2 locations that weren't as important. The photos, there's not a whole lot in the photos, and make those the smaller ones. So I'm just trying to line that up there. It was a pretty cool walking tour, but I don't know. I think we were expecting more. A lot of the stories and stuff were just stories, and there wasn't a location to go with the story. And so that was kind of disappointing, but it was still cool. We started at the Poe Museum, so that first photo is outside in the parking lot looking into the side courtyard garden. And then we went down a road that is now condos, but they used to be Civil War hospitals during the Civil War. And so we stopped outside the one that used to be the Florida Museum that apparently has like nightly activity that apparently the residents are just cool with. It's normal to them. But that was kind of interesting to hear about. And then there were several locations that were kind of referencing Poe. So that next location was referencing Poe. And then the kind of old looking beat up house is actually the Mason's house. And we couldn't go inside or anything. I guess sometimes we do get to go inside, but we went on this tour during COVID, so obviously a lot of the places that usually would allow visitors are not. And then we ended at the Rosie Connolly's bar, I guess. So it was cool. We got a lot of stories and a lot of history. I really like the ghost tours just for the history's sake, especially when we go to a new city, just because you get to learn a lot about the city within this kind of creepy, interesting context. So yeah, we always enjoy doing those, but I'm just trying to get all these pieces down. This is a headache and a half trying to piece these together, because I always do the thing where I kind of cut a paper in half and will stack it top and bottom of my photos to make them appear longer than they actually are. But I am also going over a seam because this is in the middle of my double page layout. So I have to trim one piece of paper into 4 pieces of paper to get that look of stretching it behind the photo, but also going over the seam to one of the other pages. So I got that together finally. I had to fight with that with both of this light pink paper and this black and white chevron. But now that that's down, I'm going to glue down this green scallopy paper. I think that really is a lot of fun, that green scallop paper. It breaks up a lot of the black and white. And now that's down, I think I'm going to go ahead and trim down my photos. I usually do not have my photos going over the seam. I usually like, even though the double page looks like one big page, I usually like my photos to be either on one page or the other. I don't like cutting my photo in half to kind of spread this gap. But the way these spaced out, the very edge of the Mason house is on the left side, but it's not really an important part of the picture. So I decided to go ahead and just do that. That way it can space out how I want it to. So that just took me a minute too to kind of get that glued down and spaced out. And now I have my 2 little photos over here to the left that I'm going to glue down as well. But from here, I'm just going through scraps. I do not have a lot left in this collection. I definitely want to try and get all the little scraps left over I can use. And then I do have to go into my stash, and I end up pulling out I think I pull out some die cuts from Jennifer and some die cuts from Ronnie to finish this page out. I think it ends up looking really, really cool. I have one more word used up, so I'm getting it on this page. It's another autumn word, but again, we went during October, so I'm going to go ahead and get that on here. It's another black and white element that's kind of bold, that brings, that background into these layers. I had another scrap of this skinny pink stripe I decided to squeeze on here. So right now I feel like I am very much on the sketch, other than the little arrow detail that's at the bottom of it, which I will end up pulling in. But from here it goes a little haywire because I'm just trying to get all of these scraps on here. So I end up adding a lot of layers that weren't on the original sketch. But I think because I did stretch this out into a double page, I kind of need those extra layers to make it look more interesting. A lot of times when you stretch out a smaller sketch into a larger format, it can almost look too plain because you've spread out all of these elements. So I think adding some extra layers is okay. So I'm getting that pink little stripe on here. And again, having to cut it into 4 pieces so I can stretch top and bottom of the photo, but also over the 2 pages. So there's that. And then I think I'm going to go through my pocket cards really quick to see what I have. I have a lot of scraps of this pink plaid, and I also have one more scrap of this neon green floral, and this tiny little scrap of this pink, darker pink paper. So I'm really going to try and at least get all those elements on here. I know a lot of those other pocket cards have the mustard yellow and some other colors I'm not incorporating on this page, so those still won't make it. But for these other ones that are in this pink and neon green color scheme, I'm really going to try and get all of those used up. So I have this one scrap of the plaid. I'm going to turn that into a fishtail banner and tuck that on either side of this photo collage. And I like that. Brings some pink in and some more layers, and it creates a little shelf for these 2 tiny photos to sit on, which I think is really cute. And then this tiny little scrap of solid I'm just going to cut into a tag. I've been doing that a lot the past couple pages, but it's such a great way to use your scraps because you can trim it into a tag and boom, you got a coordinating tag for your collection. So I just did that with that darker pink. And I'm going to use, again, another black hole reinforcer and some black and white twine. And that's just going to be tucked down there behind the little autumn word. There we go, getting that all glued together. I'm trying to figure out what I do next. I know I dive into the die cuts, but I don't know if I do that just yet. I know I want to get some more of the pink plaid. I think right now I'm just trying to get all these scraps on here before I focus on embellishing. So I can't remember what I did first, but I do like this little tag. I think is super cute. That darker pink kind of brings your attention to this title word. And now I don't know what I'm doing. There's the neon green scrap, so I decided I would try and trim that into 2 pieces and stack that behind this other layer I added just to pull that neon green into the middle of the page, since I have this bright green scallop on either side. Using this scrap kind of pulls it all into the middle as well. So I like that. There we go. Just trying to fly by the seat of my pants here, and it's a little difficult just because I've already glued down all these fiddly bits and I'm having to pull them back up to glue this down. This layer really wasn't needed, but I really wanted to use up this scrap, and I think it does serve a purpose with pulling the green into this middle portion, so it's staying. It also introduces that floral, and I still have those 2 tiny floral embellishments I really want to use up, so I'm going to use that as my excuse to use up those last 2 little floral bits from the collection. And then I still had another scrap, 2 little scraps of this pink plaid, so I decided I would add that to the left and right to try and create what looks like a large layer going behind these other 2 up here. But I like that too, just because it brings in the plaid from the little banner I have, just so there's more of that pattern. And it makes a little bit more sense. And then I think this is where I went through my die cuts. There's these really cool film strips that Ronnie sent me, and I really like the boldness of the black, and also because I pretty much have this photo strip of all of these photos, I thought it'd be a really cool thing to get on here. So I decided to add that as a nice bold vertical element behind these layers. I really like how bold that looks. And that texture, I just think it looks so cool. So I'm going to glue that down. I did cut it into 2 pieces because I want a little bit of that peeking out of the bottom of these photos too, just so it looks like a long film strip. But I think that looks awesome. That's so cool. Ronnie sent me so much cool stuff, and I'm so glad I got to dive into it immediately for these pages because they just went with my themes so well. But I think that looks cool. I'm just going to tuck this tiny bit at the bottom just so it looks long. I like how that looks. There we go. Perfect. I really am missing the triangular element from the sketch. I definitely want to incorporate something that's similar to the row of triangles along the bottom of the photos, but I don't really have anything like that. Initially, when I saw that on the sketch, I was like, oh, I can take all of my scraps, cut them into squares, cut those squares in half, and then use a bunch of scraps doing this triangular design on the bottom of my layout. But as I started going, a lot of the scraps I have left over aren't in my color scheme, and so that was kind of a no-go. But I remembered that I had these really cool triangular elements from Jennifer, and I used all the black ones already, but there were some pink ones still in my little goodie bag from her. So pink is on my color scheme. There's multiple shades of pink on this page, so I decided to just use up 2 of these pink ones to run along the bottom of these photos, and I think that is so cool, and it's like the perfect nod to the original sketch. I really wanted that triangular kind of design at the bottom, and that was just perfect. And then I also wanted to pull in some more hearts from Ronnie. She sent me, look at this massive stash of die cut hearts she sent me, and I really wanted to be able to go through all of them. Excuse me. And so I just decided to dump them into this little container that I had left over from Kelly. So that's just going to be my little heart container now, but I just fished through a bunch of them. I wanted more of these little cut out hearts, but I also wanted a couple of the small solid hearts that I could pair with these little outlined hearts, and I think those are so cute too. I'm pretty sure I just used the rest of the outlined ones. I've really been favoring those from that goodie bag and getting them on a lot of pages, so I think they're so cute though. I'm just going to create a visual triangle with all these little hearts. One there by the tag, one over here on the left, and then one over here on the right somewhere. I just want to create a visual triangle with all these cutie little hearts. And I think that looks adorable. I'm so glad I got all these die cuts used up. Excuse me. Now I'm going back to my stash, to the die cuts I'm actually supposed to be using, and seeing what I have used up. There's still a little black floral bit from Kelly. I used the rose or the flower from her on the last page, but I still had this kind of skinnier version, and I really wanted to get it used up on this page. So I'm going to pair it over there on the right with a couple of these hearts. And then you can barely see at the top of my screen, I still have those two little floral die cuts from this collection. I really want to get those used up too. I had a tiny, tiny bit of this heart, black and white heart branding strip. And I couldn't throw it away, so I decided just to tuck it on this page, create a little banner with those little hearts, and then I just decided to tuck those two florals I had left next to it just so it made a little bit more sense. But I couldn't make myself throw away that little scrap of that branding strip with the hearts on it, so I'm glad I got it used up. I decided just to pair these little hearts together to create a little floral focal point up here. And I think that's pretty much it. I do need to do my title, or my, not my title, my journaling. And I kind of have a lot to say because this is the only page from the ghost hunt or the ghost tour. And I really want to mention each of those locations just so when I'm looking back on this, I know what each of these photos are. So I need to do a lot of journaling, and I'm not quite sure how to do that. But I was like, hey, your background, it's a bunch of lines. I was like, just journal across all the white lines. I didn't want it to look too distracting, so I still tried to write small-ish but legible. And I think this turns out kind of cool because you don't kind of notice it right away when you look at the page, but then you'll see the words and then you can read the journaling. And it's a lot of journaling, but it doesn't look like a lot the way I did it because I don't think you notice it right away. But I just go through pretty much all the photos. It says we couldn't leave Richmond without doing a ghost tour. We started at the Poe Museum outside the side garden. From there, we walked past many buildings that were Civil War hospitals, separated by state. We stopped outside of Florida's old hospital, which has near nightly activity. From there, we passed Jane Stannard's house, who was Poe's early love, who he dedicated Helen to. The coolest looking stop was the Mason house, but we ended at Rosie's pub. I did bring my K2 meter, but unfortunately was unable to use it. So much fun and history. So yeah, I'm pretty much just doodling or doing my journaling across all the lines of both pages. And I think it turns out kind of cool. I know some people might not like that, but it did the trick. It was practical, but it also kind of gave you a cool design element with having the subtle text across both pages. And it really was like the perfect amount of space for me to say everything that I wanted to say. I wanted to still keep it concise, but I have a lot of photos and a lot of locations here. I wanted to make sure I mentioned what they were. So almost done here, and I'm pretty sure I'm done after this. I don't add any Nuvo drops. I might go back and do Nuvo drops, but honestly, I really like how these cute little hearts look everywhere. I think there's a good balance of this bold black elements with this black and white straight background. But yeah, this page was a lot of fun. Thank you guys so much for watching. I think the close-ups are here in a minute. I'm trying to remember if I do anything else. I'm trying to look at my last little bits here, but yeah, there's nothing else I can get on here within my color scheme. So this is it. There's page 1, here's page 2, and then you'll have a couple close-ups here. But thank you guys so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. Make sure you check out everyone else playing along with Stretch the Sketch. They will be linked in the description to see what they did with it, but I really loved pulling this out into a double. I think it turned out so fun. I'll see you in the next one, guys. Thanks.